March 15th. Okay, so on the agenda for today, we're going to talk about our respiratory protection policy. We're going to go through incidents, lightning. Malachi's going to share a story. He was driving by a well the other day. It got hit by lightning and blew up just while he was driving by it. We're going to talk about Samuel, and Samuel's going to share a story how he dropped a thing on his foot. And don't do that. We had a truck in the ditch, and then Jeremiah's going to talk to us about our REGEN system, and then we'll talk about making sure you don't get any dyed diesel in your tractor. That's been happening, and we'll talk about that as well. So, respiratory protection policy. There's been some questions recently about our need for a respiratory protection policy and whether you need to shave, whether you don't need to shave. Enerplus is not requiring to shave now. Some of the other companies do, some don't, and so we're going to go through our respiratory protection policy and talk about why we require everybody to be clean shaven when you're working on a well site. And it's a policy, but it's also an OSHA requirement because we are subjected to frac sand, and we can get a $126,000 fine if we don't enforce this policy. So we're going to talk about why. Let's look at the policy here. This is the policy. This is yours to keep. If you look at the first page there, I'm just going to read the underlined sections. This plan requires and specifies acceptable controls for respiratory protection found in OSHA Part 1926. So this is an OSHA regulation in control of occupational disease caused by breathing air contaminated with harmful dust and fog, fumes, mist, gases, smoke, etc. But you guys, our primary concern is we don't work around a lot of H2S, so you're not going to be wearing an SCBA that much, but you are going to be wearing one of these frac sand respirators, and the policy requires that we show you how to do this and that we get you fit tested and so on. So we will provide a respirator which are applicable and suitable for the purpose intended, and that's why we issue these instead of an SCBA. All management supervisors will be responsible for the health and safety performance in their respective areas of operation. This responsibility can neither be transferred nor delegated. So the management and the supervisors are responsible, according to OSHA, for regulating and enforcing this policy. So let's look at the definition under point 2. Air purifying respirator. This is not a supplied air respirator. This is an air purifying respirator. It's a respirator with air purifying filter cartridges or canisters capable of removing specific air contaminants by passing ambient air through the air purifying element, which is the little filters, the little pink filters that we put on these. And we have a lot of spares, so make sure you keep these clean and get spares when you need them. We're on page 2. Okay, now we're on page 3, point 7. The employee exposure, imminent exposure to concentrations of airborne contaminants should be an employee not be using an air respirator. Point 10, filter or air purifying element, which is a component used in the respirator to remove solid or liquid aerosols from the air. This one does solids, and it just unscrews. You guys have put these on, right? All right, so you just screw them on, and you snap them, and these ones are actually better than what is required. Filtering face piece or the dust mask. That's a negative pressure particle respirator with a filter and an integral part of a face piece or an entire face piece composed of a filter element. We don't require everybody to wear the full face piece. It's just a half mask. Number 13, fit test. The use of a protocol in quantitative or qualitative evaluating the fit test of a respirator for an individual. So what we have been doing up to this point, we've been using the Scott 2000 test. When you get your fit test, you have to do the full Scott 2000 supplied air respirator. We're going to go with air gas and B&H, and we're only going to require you now to be fit tested for this mask because that's the only one we really use. You're not going to be going in and rescuing somebody. Number 15, high efficiency particulate air, or HEPA filter, which is a filter of 99.97% efficiency in removing monodispersed particles of a 0.03 micron in diameter. These are actually 99.9% efficient, so these are a little bit better than what is actually required. Number 17, immediate danger to life and health, IDLH atmosphere, which is an atmosphere posing an immediate threat to life, which could cause irreversible adverse health effects or would impair an individual's ability to engage, to escape from a dangerous atmosphere. Frac sand, OSHA just last year in 2016 they implemented it, but it's actually going to be in full force in June of 2018 of this year. They reduced the permissible exposure limit, or the PEL, of respirable crystalline silica, which is the dust that's around the Sand King and any of the trucks that are moving sand. They reduced it. It used to be 250 micrograms per cubic meter. They reduced it to 5 micrograms, or 50 micrograms. So they reduced it 5 times. So it's now, they reduced the permissible exposure limit because they realized that this stuff is much more dangerous than they thought it was before. Question?
Is that the reason they said a lot of people buy most of the boxes? They're about to start using those trucks?
Yeah, the trucks generate more dust than the boxes do. The boxes don't generate nearly as much dust. They don't generate any dust when you move in the boxes. But if there's a conveyor belt, or if they're actually moving sand and there's any sand actually in the air in that area, then use your respirator. Make sure to protect yourself. With this, as little as 1 to 2 months exposure to silica dust without a respirator, only 1 or 2 months can give you irreversible silicosis, which gives you lung cancer, it can give you tuberculosis, and it makes your life real miserable. It's like breathing through a little tiny straw, and you lose your ability to breathe. And it's irreversible. They can't do anything about it. That dust is just like little shards of glass. And when you breathe it into your lungs, those little shards of glass get in there, and it just makes your life miserable.
Great.
Next page is the qualitative and quantitative fit test, which that just says that you have to get a fit test and you have to have a current fit test card on an annual basis. The next point is point C, responsibilities. Let's talk about supervisor responsibilities. Supervisors, this is for our management, our frac coordinators, our supervisors, all management. Supervisors will ensure that each employee under his or her direct supervision is using an appropriate respirator. So the supervisors not only have to be using them themselves if they're in that environment, but they have to make sure that you are using the appropriate respirator and the employee has received appropriate training and is in its use and care. All employees shall show proof of a valid and current medical evaluation and fit test prior to working. Supervisors will ensure the availability of appropriate respirators and accessories, provide adequate storage facilities, and encourage proper respirator equipment and maintenance. Supervisors must be aware of the tasks requiring the use of respirator protection and ensure that all employees engage in such work using the appropriate respirator at all times. Supervisors are responsible for the following: ensuring that employees who wear respiratory protection devices are thoroughly trained in their use, to include donning and doffing, that means putting it on and taking it off. Provide employees with the respiratory protection appropriate for the operation and ensuring the use of such devices, and identifying potentially hazardous conditions and immediately notifying the policy administrator for designee for corrective action. Okay, next page. The underlined section there, any work that's generating large amounts of dust or airborne particles. We're talking specifically when you're working around sand. So that's the area that we're most concerned about. If you're on the rest of the frac site and there's no sand, and if you're upwind, or if you're upwind from these sand particles, then you don't need to wear a respirator. But anytime you're exposed to sand or particles in the air, you must use a respirator. The employee responsibility. It is your responsibility to use respiratory protective equipment as instructed and required under the hazardous agent protocols at all times. So it is your responsibility to make sure that you wear the respirator at all times. Next page. D, procedures. Respirators shall be selected on the basis of potential hazards to which the worker is exposed and be provided at no cost to affected employees. The policy administrator shall ascertain the device selected for the employee will provide satisfactory protection when used properly. The following factors are to be considered. The ones that are underlined: review of actual and potential hazards to assess extent of injurious effects produced under all conditions of potential exposure. Medical evaluations: when they do a fit test on you, you typically have to answer some questions, medical questions. You know, you got heart disease, you got asthma, you have those kinds of things. And we have to keep a copy of your medical evaluation in addition to your fit card. We didn't used to have to do that, but now when you get a new fit test, you have to bring us the card, and you have to also bring us the medical evaluation, and we have to keep record of that. We upload that into ISN. So we're required to keep track of that. Next page, number 3, fitting. The policy administrator or designee will provide fit testing to individuals required to use respirator for the first use of the respirator. Any individual with a beard or other facial hair preventing the proper face piece to face seal will not be fit tested until the hair has been removed. Respirator fitting and training records shall be maintained for each participating individual. Like I said, we have to keep those records. We have to keep medical records for up to 30 years because you get silicosis 10 years down the road. We have to come back and say, hey, did we fit test you properly? Did we require you to use a respirator? And it's, if we don't require you to, and if we don't enforce that, then it sets the company up for a class action lawsuit of multi-millions of dollars in health costs. So that's one of the reasons that we have to enforce this. But the main thing is to protect your life, protect your health. Okay, respirator fit testing. A fit test shall be used to determine the ability of each individual respirator wearer to obtain a satisfactory fit with any air purifying respirator. This is air purifying respirator. Either a quantitative or qualitative fit test will be performed. Personnel must successfully pass the fit test before being issued the respirator. Next page. And the next page after that. And the next page after that. Special considerations. Facial hair. No attempt is made to fit a respirator on an employee who has facial hair, which comes between the sealing periphery of the face piece and the face, or if facial hair interferes with the normal functioning of the exhalation valve of the respirator. Training. Respirator users and their supervisors will receive training on the Respiratory Protection Policy, which you guys have the policy, and the responsibilities contained herein. Training will document proper respiratory protection selection and use, fit checks, and limitations of the respirator. You cannot use this respirator in an H2S environment. This is not a supplied air respirator. This is an air purifying respirator. This just takes particles out of the air. But if you have toxic fumes or toxic gases, this will not protect you from those. So, and you're not typically going to be working in those kind of areas. If you were to go into a confined space where you're cleaning out tanks, or let's say you had to go in and repair a methanol tank and you had to go inside, you wouldn't use this kind of a respirator. You'd have to use a supplied air respirator, or SCBA. Okay, next page, nothing there. Next page, nothing there. Next page, nothing there. This just talks about some of the details that I wanted to skip through. Number 3, service life. Service life of air purifying respirator canisters and cartridges. The canister or cartridge of an air purifying respirators are intended to be used until the filter resistance precludes further use or the chemical sorbent is expended as signified by a specific warning property, i.e. odor, taste, or whatever. New canisters, cartridges, or filters shall always be provided when the respirator is reissued. When in doubt about a previous use of the respirator, obtain a replacement cartridge or cartridges. I always have them in my pickup. There's some in the safety closet. We typically keep some in the mud room. If these get dirty, or if they're not usable, then by all means, please get some new ones. Talk to Malachi, talk to me, and we will make sure to get you more or clean filters. If the mask is ever damaged, if it has cracks in it, If it's not working properly, tell us, we'll get you a new one. I carry them in my truck, we have some in the cabinet out here, and we have a bunch in our safety closet. So they're for your use and your protection. Next page, issuance of a respirator protection equipment shall be ordered, purchased, or issued to personnel unless the respirator wearer has received respirator training and fit test. We can't issue you one unless you got a fit test. New employees who require respiratory protection equipment must be trained in the respiratory policy before being issued the equipment. So, do you guys have any questions on this? You may have a question. And I know we've been lax. I had a beard for 30 years before I started working in the oil field. I don't like not having a beard. My wife hates me not having a beard. You know, she likes me having a beard because I'm handsome anyway, but I get more handsome if I have a beard on, a well-trimmed beard, and I like that. But guys, working in the oil field, you got to shave, and that's just part of the game. So you have to do that. So if you would rip that last page off and then date it and fill your, you can print it. You don't have to actually sign it. Just go ahead and print it.
How do you know if it's on correctly and it's working?
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about donning and doffing it. That's a good question. Okay, here's how the respirator kind of goes. Obviously, the nose piece goes up. We saw a guy one time wearing one upside down with no filters in it. Yeah, so it has to be this way. All right, and then you put it against your nose, and then it clips together. It's just a simple little plastic clip that clips together just like that on the back of your neck. And then it's very easy to don and doff. All right, so you take it on and off. I'll show you how to do it. Demonstration. You put this behind your head.
And it's on. It's that quick. And you can feel if there's any leaks in this type of mask. Okay? So, not choking. Well, you can't eat your sandwich when you're doing that. You can't smoke a cigarette. And you don't smoke on the well side anyway. Right? Alright. Then you just take it off.
And that's how easy it is to don and doff. But make sure these are clean and in good condition whenever you're working on the practice. Did that answer adequately?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, what if they're wearing like a large one and it's too big for them, or a small, medium one and it's too small for them?
We only have two sizes, and they're designed on the inside to fit an extra large. So the large ones are 6,200, a 3M 6,200, and the medium ones are a 6,000. This happens to be a 6,000, which is a little small for me, but it's still sealed. So if it doesn't fit, ask for a new one.
So what I do is I cover my two filters and I suck in. If I can't breathe, obviously the filters and the mask is working.
Okay,
That's
so
how I know it's
you
secure.
put your hand over it and then you try to breathe. All right, that's good.
That's how I know it's on secure and that it is working.
Good.
And obviously if it's clogged, you can't breathe, it's time to replace those filters.
This is OSHA's standard, and I think all of you guys who have been through training, I'll pass this around again just to get your signature on this. But this is the employer shall ensure that no employee is exposed to an airborne concentration of respirable crystalline silica in excess of 50 milligrams per cubic meter calculated on an 8-hour time-weighted average. That is at least 99.97% efficient in removing monodispersed particles of 0.3 micrometers in diameter. Failure by either the company or the employee to follow OSHA regulations can result in the following penalties. A serious violation now is $12,471. You can be fined if you willfully do it, and OSHA finds out that we've been trying to enforce it and you ignore it, you can be fined up to $12,000. A failure to abate or failure to avoid the hazard is $12,471. Willful or repeated offense. Listen to this. Willful or repeated offenses, $126,000 per violation. That's how serious OSHA is. If there was a guy that was killed welding a saltwater tank up here at Neighbors a couple of years ago, in North Dakota. OSHA gave that company a $17,000 fine, and they put a guy in a situation where he was killed. They're issuing $126,000 fines if we don't make sure to keep this stuff going.
Start in the middle, homie.
Pass this around.
Thank you. Thank you.
Put your John Henry on those.
Hey, Greg, can I say what I need to say?
Okay, so while we're doing this, Jeremiah wants to talk about, come up here so he can video you, so you can get your smiling face on the camera, and you can pass this around to everybody. We've been having some problems with REGEN and understanding how to properly REGEN vehicles and issues. So Jeremiah, take it away and give us your great knowledge.
So the biggest problem we're having is, I know you guys, when you guys are cleaning out your lines and switching from product from dye to clear, and sometimes we're finding in tanks, you can't be doing that. Because that clogs up the dosing units and has a lot of issues. Right now we got four in the shop. It actually caught on fire inside this SCR and the DOC. Well, that SCR alone is $5 grand. DOC is over $8 grand. So I mean, to cause, this is what makes you guys money. Think of it as your own cars and take care of it. And you guys help me figure out communicate with me so we can get these structures fixed and keep them clean. And if you guys have any issues, talk to your supervisors during the night, during the day. It don't matter, so we can get these things fixed. If that thing in your car's a REGEN, don't override it. I don't care if it takes a half an hour, an hour. It's got to get done, otherwise we're causing more issues. The tow bill from Keene down there, it's $1,000, if not more. And then you guys are down the truck, somebody else is down the truck, short trucks. So I mean, it's a lot of money, yes, to fix these problems, but at the same point in time, if you guys help us out by actually allowing the truck to REGEN on location, and to save us a lot of time, and you guys a lot of time switching from truck to truck to truck, back and forth, back and forth. Just even doing the equipment checklists and the DVIRs, so you can get all this stuff fixed. We're trying to do as much as we can and as fast as we can, but it makes it kind of hard when we fix something and one gets, oh, now this is it. It makes it really hard for you to go forward and try to get everything out the door as fast as we can. So everything, you guys have trucks on these locations. You guys have, all the lights fixed and new seat cushions and doors that work and reels that work and everything. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to fix all of the mistakes that were done. And we're not band-aiding, we're actually fixing it right the very first time. As much as we can.
So what did you say in the beginning about the clear and the dye?
Yeah, we can't put clear diesel, or we can't put dyed diesel in
Our saddle tanks.
in our saddle tanks.
Okay, obviously.
It can't happen.
So basically what's happening is guys are filling equipment up, and then they want to
Clear their line.
put some put some fuel in their truck, rather than cleaning the line out, putting over the top and then purging the line and making sure clear is coming out. They're just taking the line, and then whatever dyed is in that hose is going in the tank, and it's causing all these problems.
Here's the issue. If we continue doing this, and we get stopped by DOT, anybody gets stopped. It's a fine on any driver. Because we're not running off road. We are on state highways. And then as soon as you open the cap, there it is. Don't have to do a sample test, don't have to do nothing. I can see it in the filters. And honestly, it screws up a lot of stuff. That's a lot of reason why we're having so many REGEN problems, so much death problems, and all that type of stuff. And if it stays cold like this, we're going to be putting bras back on those trucks. They need to stay on. What we rip them off, nothing. Because of the fact that these engines run so warm and so efficient that that rod needs to stay on. It needs to keep everything, because otherwise there's so many issues that happen if water condensation gets inside that motor. It causes a lot of headaches, a lot of problems, and you guys are out there. We're pulling transports off, pulling bulk trucks off, all that stuff. All that stuff has got to stop. I'm just trying to help you guys. You guys have nice equipment to go out and work.
What's average on a 12-hour shift for REGEN? Once?
It all depends. If a truck regens, it could be upwards of 3 days before it needs another one.
So say I'm in the middle of my run and it needs to regen.
I would just let it regen. Let it do its thing. Otherwise, because if you override the system, it cannot allow you, if you're in the middle of your run and it decides not to do it, then you're calling me to come out there and do it, to force it into a regen while you're sitting around. Which I can do 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you guys go back over to another run, and if it doesn't allow me to do it, then that truck comes off location. Then it goes down and gets the DPF pulled apart, the SCR cleaned out, and the DOC cleaned out, then burned, and then we're out 3-4 days before we can get that truck back to location, which would be short of a truck or 2 trucks. We're trying to make it so we have extra backup trucks for you guys that are fully done, ready to go, and everything. All I'm asking is for you guys to help us out by simply just not putting dye in the saddle tanks and doing the regens like they're supposed to. And if you guys are idling, sitting there idling, make damn sure you guys idle these up.
Bump them up to 900 to 1,000.
900, yep. Because what it does is it pushes all that soot through the system. So you don't have to force it.
You know how to idle them up, right? You just engage your cruise control and hit the cruise.
So it's pretty simple. I know you guys know what you guys are doing. I'm just trying to help you guys out so you guys have nice equipment running, sitting on this location.
So purge your line, no dye in the line when you're fueling the truck, and then keep it idle up. And if it starts to regen, just let it finish.
Okay?
Any more questions on that part? And as fines, if you get caught with dyed diesel in your tanks, I think it's upwards of about $15,000.
Yeah. It can range, it all depends on the cost.
Yeah. But it could be a pretty nasty ticket. Yeah.
So during a snowstorm, I was leaving Conoco BJ, and I was about a half mile out on Highway 12, heading west, and it started sleeting, kind of hailing, snowing, all at once, out of nowhere. And right after that, lightning out of nowhere. Never seen it before during a snowstorm. And it hit actually the well site, right line. Storage tank, lighting on fire, and almost burned it all the way to the ground. So, keep aware of your weather app. I use WeatherBug for my app. It has a lightning tracker.
Yeah, it's a Doppler radar that tells you how far away lightning is.
So I looked at that immediately, and it's at 0.2 miles away from the lightning strike. Obviously, right by me. So yeah, just be aware of that, even during snow storms, because I've never seen that before. Like I said, it was probably about 1.5 miles from our frac location, so I got a hold of them right away. Letting their safety guy know to make everybody be cab up on location, bring that crane down, if it was in the air. So just be aware. Be aware of your weather app.
And just so you know, your stop work authority allows you to stop refueling or transferring any fluids if lightning is within 5 miles. So Ocean says 10, but most of the oil companies are 5. So use your own discretion. If you hear any lightning, hear any thunder, use stop work authority. Don't be transferring any fluids while lightning's in the area.
And with that weather app, you can just either screenshot it or open it up for the company man or safety on site. Obviously, when they see that,
They look at stuff practical. Even like unless it's really, really close to them, most of them, especially the hundred back the drum count.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, say you bring that into the data van, it says 0.5 or half a mile, whatever, guarantees they're gonna probably do something about it.
And our company policy is 5 miles. So you stop for authority and say, hey, our company policy is we don't fuel when lightning is within 5 miles. Because the static charge can build up on the equipment. Even though the lightning is not real close, it can still build up static electricity in the air, on you, and on your equipment. Yeah. All right, let's move on. We had a injury this week. Samuel's not going to be doing any ballet dancing for a while. Tell everybody what happened, Samuel.
Well, as we were working going in and out of the hospital, the driver helped me and she put the hose into the hospital and stick the nozzle into the tank and open it. He hasn't engaged in PT, but I think whilst I was telling myself to push it and the pressure, when it goes to the hose and flip the nozzle, and landing on my foot.
Okay. So it hurts when you were off work for a day or so. Yeah. All right. So there again, hold on to your nozzle. Don't be just letting it sit there. Hold on with both hands. Make sure you're holding on to that. As the PTO engages, it can jump and fall on your foot and give you an injury. Okay, so we talked about don't disable the REGEN. Don't put dyed fuel in the tractors. We also talked about. Ricardo mentioned the fact that he saw somebody smoking when they were transferring fuel. Guys, that is absolutely unconscionable and unthinkable. This stuff is explosive. The vapors that are coming out of these tanks and the vapors that you're standing in, it can be let off by a static charge, let alone a cigarette. There's absolutely 100% no smoking policy anywhere on this bulk plant. It's outside the fence. There's a smoking area out here. You can't be smoking within 50 feet of any tanks. No smoking at all in the yard, and definitely no smoking when you're fueling or transferring fluids, especially fuel. That's absolutely unbelievable that could happen. So if you see somebody do that, you text one of us, text the supervisor, text one of us in safety, and we'll make sure to take care of that situation. That's an immediate fireable offense. That is just no tolerance on that kind of irresponsibility. So protect yourself if you see somebody doing that. Don't die in the process just because you feel embarrassed of telling on somebody. That's just not right. We also had a truck in the ditch this week up north of Ray, up on one of the Liberty pads, driving the bulk truck down the road. They were just coming from the transport, driving toward the bulk truck. There was a sand truck that was coming at him at a high rate of speed. He was empty, but the road was fairly narrow. So our driver pulled over to kind of give him a little bit of room. His front right steer tire caught a drift of the snow, and it sucked him right in the ditch, and he got stuck and almost tipped the truck over. So be careful if you see that happening. Just stop, and just don't move over too far to that shoulder. The shoulder we tipped over. I think it was 2 years ago, we rolled over 14 trucks in 1 year, just by guys getting on the shoulder, and they tip over very, very easily. So stay off that shoulder, stay away from that shoulder. Any other topics you guys need to share or feel like you want to discuss? Everybody good? We're using, you got an app now. I sent out an app this morning. It's a job safety observation. And what we would like everybody to do is start doing job safety observations on one another once a day. It takes you about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And it's you open up the app, save it to your home screen. I'm doing a JSO on Terrence, and I say, hey, okay, I'm going to put your email address in. When I hit submit, it's going to email you the results, so you see the results of the observation. And we're going to say, are you using all your PPE? Well, yeah, you got all your PPE on, and so you just click the boxes, yes, yes, yes. Okay, you don't require a face shield on this site, so we took not applicable. Is he using good ergonomics? Is he using 3 points contact coming in and out of the truck? Is he dragging hoses by himself, or could he use help? Is he walking properly on the site so he doesn't slip, trip, and fall? Do you see any unsafe actions that are around you? Well, maybe somebody left a pile of hoses in front of the sand equipment that you have to drag hoses over. That's an unsafe situation. Put that on there. Ask somebody, what do you do to mitigate it? Well, either move the hoses or talk to somebody else about moving the hoses. And then we want you to find out what are some safe things. What's one safe thing you see today? And I may say, hey, I noticed Terrence, he saw a sand driver, a spotter that was backing up, and he was going to hit something, so he went over and stopped the truck, and he moved it for him, and he helped him back up. So I noticed him doing something positive. I want to reward him and acknowledge that he observed something safe. So we're trying to collect this data, and it's very, very important because we want to help everybody in the field start helping and watching one another. It's not a police thing. It's a make it fun. You know, make it a fun thing. If I'm observing you and I say, okay, your turn. You know, you do a JSO on me. It's your turn. And maybe I'm screwed up. I was on a site the other day and was doing a spot check for 2 of our guys. I went over to a Halliburton guy. The Halliburton guy talked to me, put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, where's your boot cleats? And I said, in the back of my truck. I said, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I forgot to put them on when I got out of my truck. And so I thanked him. I went over and I put my boot cleats on. You know, no harm, no foul, but I'm thankful that he brought it to my attention. And that's the kind of attitude that we need to create, is where somebody brings something to our attention, it's a good thing, because we're trying to keep each other safe. So, just to recap on our respiratory policy, here's our respiratory policy here. You must be clean shaven according to our policies and according to OSHA if you're going to be working on a frac site, whether it's silica dust. You do not have to be fit tested for an SCBA. We're going to start fit testing just for this dust mask, but you must be fit tested, and you must wear this, and you must be clean shaven. And it's the supervisor's and manager's responsibility to enforce that according to our policy, and it's you as an employee's responsibility to make sure you wear it. And the fines are substantial for motion, starting in June, especially up to $126,000 for willful violations. So, any questions?